In 2024, one of the most important studios in anime history filed for bankruptcy. This wasn't some unknown company nobody heard of. This was Gainax, the studio connected to Neo Genesis Evangelion, a studio that helped shape the language of modern anime, a studio whose influence can still be felt in the way anime is directed, edited, framed, and discussed today. And yet, after nearly 40 years, Gainax reached the end. In its own statement, the company said it had filed for bankruptcy with the Tokyo District Court on May 29, 2024. It also said that continuing business had become difficult. But here's the part that makes this strange. Gainax didn't collapse while anime was dying. It collapsed while anime was everywhere. Anime is on Netflix, it's on Disney+, anime is on Prime Video and on Crunchyroll. Anime movies are filling cinema. Anime characters are selling clothes, games, figures, snacks, music, and brand collaboration. Every few months, a new anime takes over the internet. So how can anime be winning while some of the studios making it are falling apart? That is the question I wanted to investigate. And the deeper I looked, the more obvious the answer became. For years, anime felt like something you had to discover. You had to search for it. You had to know the right TV blog. You had to buy DVDs. You had to borrow episodes from a friend. You had to find fan sites, forums, downloads, subtitles, and sometimes terrible video quality just to keep up. Anime felt like a secret world, but that world isn't secret anymore. Today, anime is global entertainment. A teenager in South Africa can watch the same episode as someone in Japan, America, Brazil, France, Indonesia, or India. A scene can air in Japan and trend worldwide within hours. A fight can become a TikTok edit. An opening song can become a global sound. A manga panel can become a meme before the anime even catches up. Streaming changed everything. It removed the gate, and once the gate disappeared, anime exploded. According to Grandview research, the global anime market was valued at $37 billion in 2025. In 2026, it is valued at $41.7 billion and projected to reach $77.2 billion in 2033. That is not niche, that is an empire. Sony understands this too. In 2024, Reuters reported the Sony Pictures Entertainment saw Crunchyroll as a major growth driver. Sony's film chief called Crunchyroll the company's primary growth driver at Sony Pictures Entertainment over the next few years. Reuters also reported that Crunchyroll had 13 million subscribers globally at the time. So from the outside, the story looks simple. Anime escaped the niche. Anime became cool. Anime became profitable. But success created a new problem because the world didn't just want anime. The world wanted more anime. More shows, more seasons, more adaptations, more movies, more exclusives, more content. And this is where the story starts to change. When friends talk about anime, we usually talk about studios, Mappa, Toei, Parrot, Bones, Madhouse, Cloverworks, Ufotable, Vid Studio, Kyoto Animation. If a show looks amazing, we praise the studio. If an episode looks rushed, we attack the studio. If a season gets delayed, we blame the studio. But anime production is more complicated than that. A lot of anime is funded through what's called a production committee. That committee can include publishers, music companies, toy companies, TV stations, and other investors. Each company is there because it benefits from a different part of the anime. The publisher wants manga sales. The music company wants opening and editing songs. The toy company wants figures. The streaming platform wants subscribers. And the studio is often hired to make the anime. That sounds obvious, but it's important because if the studio is only paid a production fee, it may not own the long-term rewards. The manga can sell millions, the music can chart, the merch can explode, the film can dominate cinema, but the studio that animated the series may still not benefit the way fans imagine. That's the first major contradiction. An anime can be successful without the studio becoming rich. A chapter can become iconic while the people drawing that character are still under pressure. A franchise can become global while the studio behind it remains fragile. So when we say anime is bigger than ever, we have to ask a second question. Bigger for who? Bigger for the platform, bigger for the publisher, or bigger for the committee? Because those are not always the same questions. Anime looks magical because the final product hides the process. You see the fight, you see the transformation, you see the emotional close-up. You see the camera moving through explosions, shadow, blood, fire, and impossible speed. But behind every frame is a chain of human work, layouts, key animation, backgrounds, coloring, editing, sound, corrections, retakes, final checks. And when the show is action heavy, that pressure it multiplies. Modern fans don't just want episodes anymore. They want cinematic episodes. They want every fight to look like Demon Slayer. They want every impact frame to go viral. They want every emotional moment to look like a movie. They want weekly television anime to look like theatrical animation. And when it doesn't, the internet reacts immediately. People say the studio fell off. They say the animators were lazy. They say the adaptation was ruined. But very often, the real problem isn't laziness, it's time. Some productions are rushed before they even start. Some release dates are locked in before the schedule is healthy. Some episodes are finished dangerously close to the broadcast. Some cuts are passed between freelancers and subcontractors because there simply aren't enough people available. Outsourcing itself isn't automatically bad. Anime has always involved collaboration between studios, freelancers, and production teams. The problem is when outsourcing becomes a rescue mission, when the work is being passed around because the deadline is collapsing, when the corrections pile up, when production assistants are chasing missing cuts, when staff is trying to finish an episode that should have had months. Not more pressure. That is why modern anime can feel so strange. One episode looks like cinema, the next episode looks like survival. One fight becomes legendary, another scene barely moves. Anime has never looked better at its highest level, but the cracks have also never been easier to see. This is where the story becomes more or less romantic, because anime is not just a creative industry, it's a labor industry. JANICA, the Japanese Animation Creators Association, publishes its Animation Creators Survey Report 2023. The numbers are important. 40% of the respondents were regular employees, but 30.8% were freelancers and 16.5% were self-employed. That means a large part of the animation workforce is not sitting inside one stable company with predictable protection. A lot of the industry is built on freelancers, independent workers, temporary contracts, project-based relationships, people moving from job to job, cut to cut, episode to episode. That flexibility helps anime get made, but it also makes the people making it more vulnerable, because if the schedule collapses, the pressure lands on them. If the budget is tight, the pressure lands on them. If the deadline doesn't move, the pressure lands on them. The anime boom created more work, but more work doesn't automatically mean healthier work. Sometimes it just means more pressure. This is the uncomfortable part. Anime is built on passion. Most people don't become animators because it is the easiest career. They do it because they love drawing. They love stories. They love movement. They love characters. They love the feeling of bringing something to life. But passion becomes dangerous when an industry depends on it too much. Because when everyone knows young artists are desperate to work in anime, the system can start treating their dream like a discount. Long hours become normal, low pay becomes normal, unstable work becomes normal, and suffering gets dressed up as dedication, and that is the emotional core of their story. Fans see the finished episode, they see the beautiful fight scenes, they see the viral clip, but they don't always see the person behind it. And that is why this topic matters, because if the industry burns through people making anime, it won't just lose workers, it will lose experience, it will lose mentors, it will lose craft, it will lose the next generation. Anime is not a skill created overnight. You don't just manufacture great animators, you train them, you protect them, you give them time. You let them survive long enough to become excellent. But if too many artists leave before they reach that point, the industry doesn't only lose labor, it loses its future. This brings us back to Gainax. Gainax is not the entire anime industry. Its bankruptcy had specific causes. Its own statement described years of mismanagement, debt, unpaid royalties, loss of production function, and related companies using Gainax name while the original studio declined. So Gainax wasn't simply destroying the anime industry. Its collapse was also a story of bad management. But as a symbol, it matters. Because Gainax proves something fans often forget. Cultural impact doesn't guarantee business survival. A studio can make history and still fail as a company. A studio can influence the entire medium and still collapse. A studio can create work that lives forever while the business behind it falls apart. That should make us pause. Because if a legendary name can end this way, what happens to the smaller studios with less power? What happens to studios that don't own their biggest hits? Gainax is not the only story, but it is a good warning. So, After looking into this, I don't think the real story is that anime studios are collapsing because anime is failing. The real story is much bigger. Anime studios are under pressure because anime became too successful for the system that produces it. The audience grew, the business grew, the expectations grew, the deadlines grew, the number of projects grew. But the foundation didn't grow at the same speed. The industry is trying to feed a global audience with a production system that still depends heavily on fragile schedules, freelancers, subcontractors, and studios that don't always receive the full rewards of the hits they create. There is the contradiction at the heart of modern anime. Anime became too big for its own production system. And unless that system changes, the boom itself could become the thing that damages the media. So what happens now? There are reasons to be hopeful. Some studios are hiring more permanent staff. Some companies are investing in training. Some creators are speaking more openly. Some fans are starting to understand that animation quality is connected to labor conditions. Official surveys and industry reports are making the problem harder to ignore, and major companies clearly understand that anime is no longer a temporary trend. It is a long-term global business. But awareness alone doesn't fix the industry. Anime doesn't need less success, it needs a better way to handle success. It needs schedules that respect the work. It needs business models that reward studios more fairly. It needs conditions that allow young artists to stay long enough to become great. It needs fans to understand that every beautiful frame has a human cost. Because the future of anime won't only be decided by streaming platforms, it won't only be decided by the box office records, it won't only be decided by which series trends this season. It will be decided by whether the people making anime can keep going. And unless the system changes, the future of anime won't be decided by the people watching these worlds. It will be decided by whether people drawing them can afford to keep going.